If it is your dream to homestead, to farm, to grow all the food that your family consumes, to start a micro community, to pull your family out of society, whatever type of combination, in this video I'm going to go over exactly how I have been able to pull off what you see behind me, a 2,600 square foot Amish built barn and gardening space, as well as 6.74 acres of rural farmland that I did get with a loan I am currently paying back. I'm going to break down in 5 steps how I was able to kick-start this process in a way that is very honest. I am never trying to claim that this was easy or that this was insanely cheap or anything like that. I'm just describing how this process went for me and is currently going for me as somebody who is a first-generation farmer. I've never farmed a day in my life, and I knew nothing about any of this 1 year ago. The first thing that you are going to do, if you want to make this a reality, is obviously find the land upon which your homestead and your gardening dream is going to exist. This means you are going to look for land that is zoned agricultural or rural. Sometimes those terms are used interchangeably depending on the town zoning map you are looking at. Either usually work. I found my land on Zillow. I simply looked up lots and land. I filtered for it. I didn't want a structure on it. And I looked about 20 minutes outside of city centers to find rural land. If you are wondering how land is designated as rural, I have talked to Farm Credit and the USDA. It is basically all based on the population of the town. So if you see towns that are way in the middle of nowhere or not near city centers, chances are you are going to be looking at rural or zoned ag land. You can also check if you have a plot of land that you want to buy. You can input the address to the zoning map of that area to confirm that it is zoned rural or ag. You can also call up the zoning officer in the town to also have them confirm to you that it is zoned rural or agricultural land, because that is what you are going to need in this case to do the different types of homesteading things that you want to do on it. Zoned ag land is special because it allows you to both run a business and live on the same property. So it's like combining residential and commercial land in the same space. I knew that's what I wanted with this property because the structure you see behind me is one that I could sleep in at night if I so choose, as well as run a business and sell produce and products from my farm stand. Step 2, if you are buying undeveloped agricultural land, which is going to be significantly cheaper than land that already has utilities plugged into it, is you want to figure out your power plan. So in my case, I had electricity brought to this land. I knew I was going to be calling up National Grid to go through that process with them. That was how I elected to establish the power here. If you want to do an off-grid thing, if you want to do a solar setup, I would look into all of that to make sure it's feasible and it's an option for your land before you pull the trigger on putting in an offer for the land, because you definitely don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars and then learn down the road your plan for getting power to your property is no longer a feasible option. For example, where I am right now, it is sunny out today, but the sun truly does not come out here for about 6 months out of the year. You can look it up, upstate New York. It's a very dark place 6 months out of the year. That just wasn't an option for all the different things that I want to do with this property. If you're in Arizona or somewhere else, that could be a totally different situation for you. Step 3 is going to be financing the land. I think it makes sense to get a loan to free up your capital so that you can go ahead and put that capital into the actual structure or structures that are going to be either making you your money or providing you with a space to sleep and live in. Those are the priorities. Where are you going to sleep? How are you going to make your money? So for me, I got this 6.74 acres using a loan from Farm Credit East. There is a Farm Credit section for every part of the country, so I'm in the Northeast. That's why it's called Farm Credit East. I got a loan for the 6.74 acres. It had a 9% interest rate. This was in 2023, and I'm currently paying it off on a 10-year structure. That was just my personal preference. They had all sorts of different arrangements. If that doesn't sound good to you, just call them up. It's free. The farm credit system was established by our government over 100 years ago to make it easier for people like you and me to start farming undeveloped land, because the government knew back then it was better for everyone if more people were growing food that they could use to feed the rest of the population. There are other options besides Farm Credit East. There is the USDA. All of these different programs have different requirements, different credit score requirements, different minimums. They all vary in different ways, which is actually amazing because it means you're going to find one that fits with your particular financial situation and what is going to work for you. And if neither of those options work for you, there is my favorite, seller financing, calling up the farmers themselves. So many people are writing on my videos that these farmers are willing to lease 10 acres of land to people for only $500 a month, which if you do the math, that is a hell of a lot cheaper than renting an apartment in any single city in our country right now. A lot of them use charitable remainder trust, which means you'll either pay off the value of the land to the farmer, or if the farmer passes away, the estate will be passed on to you. And you'd be surprised how many farmers are open to this, that they didn't have children or their kids have no interest in taking over their farms, sadly, which is going to put our country in a very serious situation as far as food security and all other things are concerned in the coming years if everyday people do not get in on this land. So I highly recommend just calling up these farms, physically driving to them, open up Google Maps, find the farms on it, call them up, physically drive to it, and go talk to the farmer. They will not bite. Most cases, they will not answer the phone. They will not answer email. They are outside on a tractor, busy, and they are over the age of 60. They are tired. So go physically to them. Nothing about this process is something that you can undertake if you are going to be lazy. Trust me. You do have to have some due diligence here. You do have to be able to pick up the phone and call these loan places and call these farmers and call the town. You're going to be calling the town a lot to talk to the zoning office. You got to be willing to pick up the phone if you want to make this happen. I'm not saying that this is rocket science at all. I'm just saying you are going to have to be proactive throughout the process. But if I was able to do this alone, never having done this before in my life, it can't be that hard. Right? Step 4 is you're going to figure out how you're going to have some type of farm stand. It could be a table to begin and things that you put on the table with a piece of cardboard that you spray paint. You're going to want to get a farm stand going because for me, that has been the quickest way I have been able to start making money back for what I'm doing here. Most towns in the U.S., I think all of them, cannot interfere with your right to sell directly to the public at a farm stand. Towns can have different ordinances and laws regarding what you are able to do inside your space. For example, I'm currently at a standstill with my town over what I can do in the massive barn you see behind me. Tales for another time. I have a lot to share about that. They cannot stop me from having a farm stand and selling things like pumpkins, crafts, microgreens, my books. My farm stand has made me more money than I ever imagined it would. I did a video on this breaking down what I earn at my farm stand, and I will link to that below if you guys have not checked that video out. But my recommendation would be while you're waiting for the land to close, I would already put into motion what your farm stand is going to be and what you're going to be able to sell at it right away. If you say to yourself, well, how is that possible if I'm not even farming my own land yet? A lot of my neighbors have surplus crops of things. My one neighbor had extra kale and lettuce this summer, and he offered to sell me the kale at $1 a bag if I wanted to then turn around and sell littler bags of the kale for $4 each at my farm stand. You would be shocked at how many people in the country and rural areas are willing to barter, trade, work with you. I find these are the most entrepreneurial people I have ever been around in my entire life are in these regions. And if you are new to the country, if you've never lived in the country and you're coming from a city, I promise you they are very nice people. They do not bite. They're not going to yell at you. They're not going to pull into your driveway and try and scare you. Trust me. The last thing is you are going to want to figure out where your structures are going to come from, and this is going to be based on your budget for this type of thing. So my barn was built from scratch by the Amish. It was much more inexpensive than you might think, and much more inexpensive than the crappy residential homes that are for sale on average in our country right now. The bunny shed you see behind me and the farm stand I did get at a prefab shed store. There should be one within an hour of wherever the land is that you are looking at. These are interesting. They come obviously already made, already done. You could do that with a barn dominium, with a barn. You could have one that has been pre-made, bring it in. A lot of them start at like $60K. Again, it depends your budget with that, but my recommendation would be go to a local prefab shed cabin type of store. That's going to be your strongest lead to finding any Amish or Mennonites if they're in the area, or just finding the craftsmen that built these structures by hand. They are going to be the most knowledgeable when it comes to what you are allowed to have on your property. Please call your zoning office while you are doing this to check in on what is and isn't allowed on the property. If you think you are going to try the barn dominium route and you want to buy a prefab barn to do this in, I highly recommend calling the zoning office before you buy the land to triple check that that is going to be allowed. Listen, again, big brother watching, it's just in your best interest to get along with the town in the beginning. Do not try and do all of this without pulling permits. It will bite you in the ass down the road, especially if you want to start having farm tours and educational events or yoga classes at your farm, which can make you a ton of money down the line. All you have to do is have the space to allow these people to have these classes at your farm. It doesn't even involve you selling anything, any product. I'm hoping to explore this more next year. I did, run into issues with the town telling me that I need to have a massive parking lot to be able to open my space. I said, no, I refuse to do that. So I am pursuing alternative routes. As soon as those are accomplished and done, I will share it with you here. I do not want to eat my words on that. Local town boards, planning boards can be hostile. They can have assholes on them. That's just the reality of small town stuff sometimes. I just find if you stay more open and honest with the town, with the permits, with pulling the permits, with asking questions before you go ahead and do something, they are going to be more willing to work with you on your homesteading dream. Again, that being said, there are some way out there counties in this country that are hours from cities where nobody is really around and the nearest gas station is 45 minutes away. Then you know what? You can probably have yourself a little field day if you were in one of those areas, but I am in upstate New York, so I am not very far from cities in every direction, which I like that. I don't want to be 4 hours out in the middle of nowhere personally, because I am doing this alone, solo. As a first generation farmer, you have options. That's the beauty of this. I come on here and scream about it. $24 trillion worth of farmland is about to be for sale in this country as the average farmer retires. They are over the age of 60 and they are tired. You have your pick of the litter when it comes to this. You can pick farmland anywhere you want to have it, but it's up to you to sit down and think about and envision the dream that you have for that farmland. And don't be lazy with the calling. The more calls you make, the more success you are going to have with this. And I'm speaking from firsthand experience. I know this to be true myself. Trust me, you guys, you don't want to upset the town you're in, or if you don't like the tone of the town from the initial call, pick a new town. That's the beauty of this country. Pick a new county, pick a new state for all you care. You got 50 of them to choose from. I just always want to reiterate that humans have been farming and gardening since the beginning of time for thousands of years. This is not weird. This is not woo-woo. This is not alternative that you are craving. Growing your own food, living on a farm, farming, touching dirt, being outside in nature. There's nothing weird about that. I think this should become the norm. I'm hoping that the more I scream about this online, the more confident and comfortable people are going to feel admitting that they want to do something like this too. And again, the beauty of it is everyone's path with farming, with gardening will look different. You don't have to copy me. You don't have to copy how your neighbor does it. I think we're going to start seeing a change in what farming is in the years to come. I don't think it's going to necessarily always look like 100 acres and tons of tractors. I think we're going to see a lot of people demonstrating that with just half an acre, you can feed your family, you can feed your neighbors, and you can make surplus cash at your farm stand and a little income on the weekend when people rent your space to do a yoga class. I come on here and scream about land loans, buying farms, first generation farming, saving the environment, all that good stuff. So don't forget to subscribe and follow along if you are not already. And I'm also going to link to my Substack below where I write about all of this stuff in a very detailed manner because I am a writer by trade. With that, I hope you guys have been enjoying the content. Talk to you soon. Bye.